Good morning. Welcome to the Water Safety Seminar. Yesterday we had a day full of debates about sanitation, technologies and practice, business natures and business strategies. Today we have a meeting about green structure, preventions and resilient cities. Before we start, I would like to say some announcements. Okay, nobody.
Here in Brazil, it's morning. Thank you for accepting our invitation. It's an honor to welcome you to our seminar addressing the concept of small cities. So now I invite you to talk about it, and the floor is yours. Thank you. We cannot hear you, Professor. We're still not hearing. Ele tá...
Aqui, ó, ele não consegue abrir o microfone. Posso deixar aqui um pouquinho?
Não. We cannot hear. Could you leave the link and enter again?
Okay.
Perfect.
It was
We can hear you. Thank you.
It was under your control.
It's perfect. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you for the, again, thank you for the introduction, and it is a great honor for me to share with you about my experience in the past 25 years. How to deal with water. The subject is about water, about how can we use nature-based solution to solve the problem we are facing today. It is a global problem, climate change, flood, drought, pollution, habitat loss. So the challenge is multiple challenges. But conventionally, we use very single-minded infrastructure. We call it grid infrastructure. Building dams, channelize the river, building flood wall to control the flood, and build sewage plant to clean the water. So these grid infrastructure are always single-minded and depending on concrete and industrial technologies. The green infrastructure can be necessary to solve urgent individual problems, such as flood. You can build a dam to protect the city from being flooded, but at the same time, it consumes huge amount of concrete and energy, destroys nature and its resiliency, lacks resiliency, and often accumulates higher risk of disaster, breaks connection between man and nature. And you can see how much more concrete we are going to use in the coming years, in coming decades, even coming hundred of years. Meanwhile, you can see how much water we drain away from the planet. Global-wise, the underground water is drying, and it contributes about 40% of sea level rising. Amazon River is certainly one of the biggest rivers that drain water to the ocean. So at one side, we dry out the planet. On the other side, we cause the sea level rising. And we burn the coal. We keep polluting our atmosphere. So the alternative is nature-based ecological infrastructure, which is critical for securing ecosystem services, working together with great infrastructure. Now, what I mean ecosystem services is multiple services: provision, regulation, life supporting, spiritual and cultural services. And this kind of ecological infrastructure is meant to provide holistic services. But water is the key for such kind of ecological infrastructure. So when you manage water wisely, we can not only retain the water, we can not only reduce sea level rising, but we can also enhance biodiversity. And at the same time, we can create a more beautiful, more productive landscape for humanity. A city built upon water-centered ecological infrastructure is called a sponge city. Sponge means like sponge, literally like sponge. You return water, you suck up the water during the rainy season, and you release the water during the dry season. And at the same time, it cleans the water. So its philosophy is to retain water at its source. Whenever precipitation, whenever water falls on the ground, you better retain it as much as possible. Slow down its flow and be adapted to the water at the sink. Now, these are three key principles, totally opposite to the conventional solution of great infrastructure, which is to concentrate water by dam, speed up the water flow by channelizing the river, and build high walls to protect the city from being flooded. So sponge cities are totally different. And this kind of ecological infrastructure, the water-centered ecological infrastructure, must be planned and built across the scale, from national, regional, to local, and to your backyard. So literally, it is infrastructure to wisely manage the water. So eventually, we can have the vision, imagine a planet which is resilient, water resilient, that I call the sponge planet. It is a holistic, water-driven, nature-based solution. And sponge planet, you will say that, okay, the planet is huge. How is that possible to transform the global surface into a sponge? Now I should tell you that this sponge planet was inspired by the ancient wisdom of farming in adaptation to climate change. That is nothing new for those living in the monsoon region. Here you can see these terraces, rice paddy terraces in China, in Malaysia, in Indonesia. And here you see the Pearl River Delta area. Now all these massive scale, extensive scale landscape are planted, are spawned, and they are simply being practiced by very simple tool, easily, very minimal expense, and productive, meanwhile have multiple ecosystem services. Say, now this technique, this kind of wisdom, for the past 25 years, I found that it can be applied global-wise. From the terracing, the slope, the ponding, the valley, and the pond and diking the delta area, and creating island when you have too much water. From the dry land, the mountainous area, to the flooded area, and to the delta area. They can create sponge, slow down the water at the source, speed up, slow down the flow, and be adaptive to the flood when you have too much water. Now these are modules. These are just some of the adaptive strategies which I apply in the past 25 years all over China in more than 200 cities. And we have built over 1,000 projects, and also beyond China. These are all built projects, and they are not so expensive, and they're easy working, and they perform very well. While focusing on some major targets, such as flood adaptation, storm regulation, stormwater regulation, water cleansing, climate resiliency, soil remediation, green building, and so on. These projects are always holistically and systematically designed to provide all kinds of ecosystem services. Now that's important. They must be holistic, nature-based, for native species, for people, and for the planet as a whole. at a national scale. Since China is suffering monsoon climate every year. So we have flood, we have drought. So you need a national scale thinking, national planning. At a regional scale, this is a Beijing water security pattern. Beijing city, about 20,000 kilometers in size. This is a regional scale sponge city planning for Guangzhou city, which is 7,000 square kilometers in size. So retain water at the source, slow down water flow, which means you need to naturalize the river, renaturalize the river, keep the water as much as possible, and be adaptive at the sink. The Pearl River Delta area, we have pond and dike system. The mountain area, we have terraces system. And the river waterway, you needed to have a meandered waterway and the low dikes to slow down the water flow. Now, at the local scale, you will see that this can be implemented little by little. Now, this is about 10 square kilometers in size, a new city, water system by GIS, Geographical Information System, Geographic Information Analysis. And based on this analysis, to create a sponge city planning. And based on this planning, we design the sponge at a minimal scale. And this has been built, implemented. So from regional scale to local scale to individual project, it is workable, simple, multifunctional. This can be beautiful, can be healthy, and can be inspiring at the same time. So 3 principles: retention of water at the source. Here is a case in Sanya City in Hainan Island, suffering tropical monsoon climate. You can see here, flood every year. So we did this as a master plan for Sanya City. And at some critical point, critical area, the red area, the red dot area, you will see, you will have acupuncture, ecopuncture to create sponge. And again, the sponge technique can be very simple: terracing, ponding, islanding, and you create a sponge. In 1 year, transform about 1 square kilometer size of sponge right in the middle of the city. This is today. That was before. And this you will see today in just 5 years. Totally transform the landscape of the city, solve the problem of urban inundation. Meanwhile, you create a beautiful habitat for people and for biodiversity. This is a performance test. You can see in 2015, the whole area is flooded. And 5 years later, we have sponge. At the same time, the city gets developed along surrounding this sponge. And it also, not only just solves the problem, but actually you catalyst urban development. Similarly, we have this case in mid-reach of Yangtze River. This is the biggest river, the largest river in China. It was an ash dump. It was a dump, coal ash, polluted, lifeless, ugly. So the idea is to create a sponge by recycling the coal ash on site. And we create this floating forest, island floating over the water, create a sponge lake, a sponge forest, because during the monsoon season, the whole area can be flooded. And during the dry season, that's the rainy season, you can see. And during the dry season, it becomes a beautiful park. Because monsoon season in China is very short. You only have maybe 1 week of heavy precipitation, heavy rainfall. And 90% or 99% of the time will be a useful, accessible park. And here today, you can see, in just 3 years, we create this resilient landscape right in the middle of the city, solving multiple problems. And just 2 years ago, during the COVID-19, we have this showcase built in Bangkok. Bangkok is a city, is one of the most vulnerable cities to sea level rising. And the king, the royal family wanted to give the city a gift, a present, a tobacco factory to turn into a green park. So solution here again is use very simple tool. One machine, cut and fill. And we even use the army to build it. In just about 1 year, the whole area become a sponge that can retain about 1 million cubic meter of storm water and save the surrounding build-up area. Meanwhile, you have a beautiful habitat for biodiversity and become a new icon, cultural and natural icon of Bangkok that welcome thousands, hundreds of thousands of people every day. So the second principle is to slow down the flow. The conventional solution we deal with water is to speed up, rapid flow, channelizing the river, use concrete and straighten the water flow. Now that's what we have seen everywhere. We call industrialization or civilization even. Use much concrete. But that's totally messed up the whole water system. Because water didn't flow straight. Water always meander. Now here is based on a scientific analysis how actually water can flood the area. So instead of channelizing the river, we de-channelize it. Recover the riparian forest along the river and also make it accessible for people to use. Let it clean water, let it become a park, and recover the habitat. Now I'm talking about the transformation of the gray infrastructure in the city, a whole infrastructure. Instead of the sewage, instead of drainage, use pipe, use concrete, use channel, use pumps, we actually can transform the gray infrastructure into green, slow down the water flow. So instead of strengthen the gray infrastructure like that, dredges every year, higher and higher flood wall, more and more concrete, we actually remove concrete, totally remove the concrete. That's about 20 kilometers in length, the river in Haikou City, in Hainan Island. So remove the concrete and terracing the riverbank wherever possible. Terracing the riverbank, slow down the water flow, and become a water cleansing constructed wetland that clean the urban runoff and even sewage. Here is a wetland. It is built for cleansing of the sewage, actually. By slow down the flow, you can clean the water. Now, this is cleaned water from the sewage, actually, by nature. We have transformed the whole river system, totally transforms the city. Catalyst is the vitality of the city. Now, the third solution, the third principle is adaptation. So sea level rising is a global issue. Like in this case, in Sanya city again, it is a coastal city. Sea level rising, increase surge. This is an ongoing project. Engineer will tell you that we want to build a stronger and higher flood wall, concrete wall like that, the sea wall. But we successfully convinced the local mayor to stop that, to stop this kind of project. Instead, we actually let nature to come in. Now, this was a site. See, this is a high wall, this is a flood wall. They want to protect this piece of land. So instead of doing that, we let the water, let the ocean tide come into the line, inland, slow down the flow, and let the fresh water from upstream to meet here to create a brackish water that become a very good habitat for mangrove. Now, this 2 years later, you will see how the mangrove get re-established. At the same time, you have a beautiful park for people on one side, and on the other side, you have an isolated habitat for birds. Now, this is today, just about 5 years later, you have such a large mangrove right in the middle of the city that are resilient, that protects the city from sea level rising, from the surge, and meanwhile, you have a beautiful park for people. Now, I'm talking not just as a piece of land, I'm talking about the whole ocean sea wall. This is the case in Haikou again. Each year, the sea level rising in China about 20 millimeter. Yeah. So in the past 20 years, we have a considerable sea level rising and causing a huge surge, ocean wave surge. Now, that's why the city built the seawalls like that. But look at how the seawall actually kills the nature habitat. This after seawall. This before seawall. Why the seawall kills nature? Because it causes salination. When the wave flip over the seawall, the salt deposit and it kills the vegetation inland. Meanwhile, cause stronger erosion at the base of the seawall. So our solution is totally opposite. We actually remove the top section of the seawall, terracing it, so that the wave can be slowed down. Meanwhile, we created this permeable. Look at the permeable seawall. So let the seawater go back to the ocean, and the precipitation will wash out the salt. So you develop this vegetation. The vegetation, the biodiversity get to come back. Now this is a transformation from the pre-existing seawall to remove the seawall and recover the resilient vegetation, resilient seawall. That's what's existing. That today you will see today, yeah, permeable, sponge, resilient, breathing seawall. Now this become today's seawall. Instead of building a strong, hard concrete seawall, we actually create a spongy-like, a resilient seawall. Let vegetation to come in to establish this soft sea breathing seawall. This is today, just 3 years after it was built, recovered. This, you can see a resilient seawall. Spongy city is not just about water retaining or spilling or flooding. It is also about the water quality. Here is how sponge can clean water. Now, by constructing wetland, you can actually filtrate all the pollutant, which mean nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and so on. Now, here's a case. It is a garbage dump right in the middle of the city. Now, that's a very headache problem, everywhere. We have this solid garbage. Meanwhile, we have sewage. Then both of them need energy, need material to get cleansed and to find a solution. Our solution is use polluted or contaminated sewage to treat the solid waste, actually, creating this sponge system, terraces, the solid mountain, and let the terrace to slow down the water flow and clean the water, clean the sewage, and let the vegetation get established because of the rich nutrient, the nitrogen and the phosphorus in the water. And you can see here how the water gets cleansed when the water flow through the terraces. Now, this is just an example, it's a demonstration. And this, we are talking about the cleansing of the ocean. Now, this is the ocean, the Bohai Sea, 700,000 square kilometers in size, heavily polluted, heavily contaminated, nitrogen, the agricultural runoff. China consumes about 1/3, 30% of chemicals, fertilizers, and about 60% of those chemicals are running into the water, into the ocean. So our strategy is to catch the agricultural runoff before they run into the ocean. So we have this imagination of sponge planet, sponge coastal line. Now this is built. It's a pilot project. It is built and it's been very successful for the pilot project. But certainly we have much more to do, much more to come. So more than ever, we have to think the way we build our cities, the way we treated water and nature, and even the way we define civilization. And sponge city and sponge planet is a holistic and nature-based solution to harvest nature's free surfaces. These surfaces are free. Why don't we harvest it? Why don't we use these surfaces to heal our common planet and benefit the welfare of the people? Now, this is my imagine how the dirt, the dry planet can be cleaned, can be lush, can be cooled off. So while politicians, state leadership are talking and negotiating for carbon credit in the UN climate summit, we really have to think like a king, but act like peasant. The peasant who can use a very simple tool to transform the global surface, the terraces, mountains, the pond and dike system in river delta area, to transform the global surface, to make it resilient, to solve multiple problems, water-related, water-driven problems, including flood, drought, sea level rising, pollution, habitat recovery, habitat losing. Meanwhile, we create a beautiful planet for all humankind. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello? Yeah, so that's my talk.
Thank you, Professor. What would you say for leaders that want to implement sponge cities in Brazil?
What I should say to leaders of Brazil, I have to tell you that you have a beautiful nature sponge, which is the Amazon area. But certainly you have the development, stress. You develop a lot of this area, which also cause the problem of sea level rising, the flood, and the drought at the same time. So my word for the leadership is, that's my book, to letter to leaders of China. Similarly, this is my letter to the leaders of Brazil. We are capable, we can solve the problem using nature. By wise planning, by wise designing, with the passion of stewardship, taking care of our nature, make wise use of nature to solve the problem holistically. Don't trust the great industrial technology. Nature can provide better services in some cases. Yes.
Thank you, Professor. Here we have a lot to learn with you, and your presentation certainly helped us in sustainable water management. I would like to thank you a lot, and it's an inspiring moment here in Brazil. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
A gente inicia nosso primeiro painel do dia, infraestruturas verde e cinza para a segurança hídrica. Eu vou convidar aqui ao palco o presidente da Reserva Ecológica do Guapiaçu, Régua, Nicolas Locke. A diretora de Relações Institucionais e Sustentabilidade do Grupo Águas do Brasil, Marilene Ramos. O presidente da SEDAI fará parte deste painel, mas ele está a caminho. E convido também para moderar o painel o gerente de sustentabilidade da Kongjian, Jorge Peron.
Obrigado, Lídia. Bom, a gente começa hoje um dia muito bem, né? A gente terminou ontem, o dia ontem foi muito produtivo e logicamente, a gente tem a responsabilidade, né, ao longo do dia de hoje de continuar esse trabalho que foi feito, que vem sendo feito desde o final do ano passado. Desde o final do ano passado, a gente vem preparando com muito carinho esse evento, esses 2 dias de evento, essa interação, né, entre academia, entre empresas, entre poder público, entre iniciativa privada, de uma forma geral, pensando no que é importante dentro do contexto com todos vocês. Isso não é simples, né? A gente, tanto não é simples, que nós decidimos compartilhar essa responsabilidade e trazer parceiros para pensar junto com a gente, e daí o ineditismo dessa parceria entre a Federação de Indústrias do Rio de Janeiro, o SEBED e a Confederação Nacional de Indústrias, para organizar esse conteúdo e preparar, né, com bastante cuidado e bastante carinho esses 2 dias de eventos e esse conteúdo. Bom, não sei vocês, mas eu não falo chinês, então vocês podem ficar tranquilos, o painel será em português. Eu estou acompanhado aqui, né, do Nicolas e da Marilene, que dispensam apresentações. O Nicolas talvez seja um pouco menos conhecido, mas daqui a pouco vocês vão virar fã dele, né, tal como a gente já é fã lá da Régua e dele, da esposa, há muito tempo. Há uns 3 anos atrás, eu não sei, Lídia, foram 3 anos que a gente esteve lá na Régua para convidar o Nicolas para fazer parte da abertura do prêmio. Se ele quiser, por favor, seja bem-vindo. Acabamos de começar. Nada que isso. Eu estava conversando com o Nicolas lá na Régua, convidando ele para participar da abertura do Prêmio Kongjian de Sustentabilidade, a cerimônia de entrega, né, do Prêmio Kongjian de Sustentabilidade. E foi a primeira vez que eu tive a oportunidade de ir lá à Régua, né, por enquanto a primeira e a única, né, mas não vai faltar oportunidade. E eu fiquei encantado com a estrutura da Régua e principalmente o papel ecológico, não só ecológico, mas o papel de infraestrutura
all the terrain that now is the Tijuca National Park, where we had the water fountains. So since then, there was an understanding about nature and water supply. In 1861, Dom Pedro II declared the Tijuca Park as protective forest for the water fountains and disappropriated all the farms that were around that area. In 1861, he also created a mission to reforest the Tijuca forest with the goal of recovering the fountain, the spring that would supply water for downtown Rio and all the population. This was the mission given to Major Archer. With a few slaves, 10 or 20, they went around 116 million square meters and replanted over 100,000 trees in Tijuca Forest. And it became what we know today as the Tijuca National Park. So all that just to give you the context of the work that Nicola does with será in Águas do Brasil, but just to show that nature-based solutions, even though it's a recent topic, it's something that has been practiced in our country's history, and especially in Rio de Janeiro, even before both of us would understand the country as a republic. So I'm sorry, I destroyed your discourse. What you said is no news, but I would like to hear you. What is the role of régua? What is the importance of this? Where this idea came from, and how is this contextualized in this dynamic? Should I speak or show? Do you have a presentation? Yes, I have. Can I? So first of all, I would like to greet Liene, Professor Ronaldo, and thank you very much. And I would like to thank you, all the audience, because once again I'm able to talk about this project. régua is an NGO. That was founded after a visit and some conversations with a biologist that visited us in 1995. My name is Nicola Watts, and I'm an agriculture technician, and I'm from Cachoeira do Macacu. I was born in England, but I have double nationality, so I have the benefits to be on both sides. So since 1995, a biologist came and showed us the beauty of this region and started surveying the water fountains and saw that the area was very well preserved. And with that, since 1905, this family has been in Cachoeiras de Macacu. Let me just contextualize, because after Professor Yu presentation, that was incredible, it's hard to talk. So what are we doing in Cachoeiras de Macacu? It's a micro project. He talked about a pilot project, but ours is a micro pilot project. We need to remember that our Mata Atlântica is a particular biome that is different from any other places, inspiring many visitors. And I was born in England. My parents are from Rio de Janeiro. And many children read during winter because we have a lot of snow and cold. So I was reading about the adventures that people had here in the tropics. You really get anxious and wanting to go to that place. So this was more or less what happened to me. When I came here and I was 19 years old, I was so happy to be here and very realized. So can we live out of the forest? Well, we are not animals to just live out of that. We need our lands and to have our farms. And Cachoeira do Macacu is a city on the top of the mountains in Nova Friburgo, in Rio de Janeiro state countryside, where there is a lot of coffee production. Therefore, Cachoeira was always a place where we have a legacy. My great-grandfather, he came here in the 1900s. He founded a factory in Petrópolis. So if you know the Verna factory, it belongs to my cousin, Isadora. So this is the Verna with my grandmother on the right. And they founded this factory. They got very well to do, so for a hobby, he found this property that made him think about the Bavarian mountains, so he bought it. You see a little smoke there. He brought a lot of investment and technology. He was able to generate technology, and he helped a lot of people following the development model of the time, which would be devastating the forest. They opened the roads, brought machine, and he was even visited by our president in 1919 because this area was full of development. So Venceslau Braz, the president, came to visit. But the type of development that was done at the time was devastating the forest. And unfortunately, this gives us a very tired landscape, degraded, that is very difficult for us to fix. So, and we have this degraded, tired aspect, and this brings us a lot of problems. So, we look at it and we see that the forest starts deteriorating, lands get drier, and with the rain, the waters are taken down as mud to the rivers, and we see a lot of fires throughout the years in the whole state. So we need a plan to correct that, and this has motivated a lot because we had a property that has a lot of forest, but when we would visit other areas, the situation was not so. So who is responsible for that? Is it up to us, the people? Is it from the government? It looks like it's just a series of accidents that take us to this kind of situation. And here we see the Guapi-Macacu River Basin. It's a micro basin, it's 450 square kilometers. The property of my great-grandfather is in the area above the Guapiaçu, so we can see a green area here. He was born after the visit of this biologist. This NGO was founded in 2001 with the mission of preserving the Guapiaçu River with the environment, education, mapping, and also link all these activities with tourism because we needed to have resources to finance our program. So in 2004, we started our work. So we needed to understand what we had, since we have one of the most diverse forests in the world, the Mata Atlântica. We have almost 4,500 species, so we did a study to understand how the trees would produce flowers and how we can produce the seeds and how they produce the seeds for us to be able to use the seeds. Everything started, they have flowers in different times of the year and they produce the seeds. So with that we start doing a little seedling farm. We have up to 18,000 seedlings per year. We have the difficult work of planting these in very degraded area where the situations are not the easiest one. We need to plant the seedlings on the top of some high mountains and so on, but with a lot of volunteers, with a lot of financial support and a lot of willing people, we were able to start planting and involving the communities with that. So now this is a picture of the area that was bought by the institution. We've been buying land and recovering them. So this was in 2005. We had an area that we created to have some water. We filled it up to attract animals. And with that, we were able to have a result that was amazing in a very short period of time. And this has encouraged us to continue. We work together with an English NGO, but our Mata Atlântica is always called the attention as OS Mata Atlântica, a very well-known Brazilian organization, came to help us as well. So we changed that scenario to this scenario. After 15 years of work, we were able to get Petrobras social environmental resources that helped us to leverage this through Guapiaçu project to plant 260 acres, almost 550 acres we've been planted, and 900,000 trees in excellent state. So everything is growing well. But then we were able to bring the first animal to the region. In 2017, we were able to bring 3 of them, and we got them necklace to understand their movement, where they would go around. We studied their kind of behavior. They've been used to people. We need to leave plants outside the door so for them to be able to feed themselves, but pretty soon, 3 months later, they were used with a more natural feeding. And today we even being able to have new animals. Now we have 19 tapir, and they have 5 and now 6 cubs. So this is the benefits of reforesting this area. We've planted all these trees and we created this very important preservation area, which is part of the countryside mosaic with one of the biggest reminiscent of Mata Atlântica in Brazil. So we created a new habitat and we created jobs, and we end up getting also more tourism and people that come as volunteer. We have different projects with families and children that come to learn and to help us as volunteer, and we have a dialogue with the local community. We've produced over 160 papers. We're doing research in the area. It's one of the places that is mostly studied in Rio de Janeiro state, with a lot of theses and papers done talking about the importance of the forest, that this is still there. But this is a conversation that is not so encouraging for our local community, because we wanted them to tell us, Nicholas, close your eyes, what do you see? A forest. Do we need more than that? And actually this is a key question, but we were able to understand, and you might remember that even a few years ago, even in São Paulo, they had a period of drought that was very long, using even some other waters. But at the same time, our river was flowing very well. So we understood that change in the way we see things, not only taking care of our environment, we have to focus in the water issue of the region. If we focus on that, everybody would understand the need for reforesting. The guy there said, "No, we just need whiskey. We don't need a lot of water." But one thing pushes the other. So we understand that the key role for that is the strengthening of the environmental services through the Serra do Mar mountain, reducing the carbon dioxide in the area with the reforestation, and bringing tourism, which also helps in the environmental work we're doing and bring funds. So this would be for people to understand better our interests. We have to say that we are working towards strengthening the state park. And we talked about that. Professor just said that it fits completely in this proposal, his proposal for sponge cities. And nowadays in INEA, the Institute of the Environment of the state, sees that Cachoeira de Macacu City, it's a water tank for the rest of the city, for Alcântara, Niterói, São Gonçalo, Itaboraí, all the cities around the Rio metropolitan area. So our contribution is to continue and amplify and extend all this area to strengthen the whole system and the forest in itself. You see the Rio Guapiaçu and Rio Macacu are one parallel to the other going down to the Guanabara Bay. So how is the health of the whole? We just talked to Luema in Niterói a few days ago. I had an opportunity a few years ago to fly by helicopter the whole region. I was able to take these pictures, so we can see that we are far from having a sponge city. As Professor Yu said, but this is the goal. This is the upstream from Laranjal, and we see here our water distribution center in Laranjal. And we can compare that with other parts of the world. We always like to talk about the cascades in New York, and how does this work when we, Delaware, he says, when we compare, they had a crisis in 1770 in which a lot of people died. It was a very low population at the time, 3,500 people, but in a few years, they realized they need to do something. So following the growth of the city, this is the study of Catskills, Delaware. So the government created some areas and created a basin that is 4,000 square kilometers. So today we see these as integrated management. How was that? Not very different from our territory here in 1900s. Now we see that our area here is all reforested, which is very similar to what Professor Yu said. So today, REGUA, our NGO, is focused on preserving the species and reforesting. We know that to produce water, we need forests. We are doing our sponge city here, is very similar actually, and we need diversity also to keep the forest healthy. So we see that it's a cycle. So if you would like to participate on that, because of course I want supporters, CBO helped us, they are helping us plant, but if you see that your company are interested in helping us, we are with open arms, ready to receive you. Thank you for this opportunity to present our case. And I will have to go now. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Não é a primeira vez que eu vejo essas informações, mas imagino que para grande parte de vocês é o primeiro contato que vocês estão vendo com a REGA. E eu tenho certeza que o interesse de vocês pela REGA vai aumentar gradualmente. O Nicolas trouxe uma informação, além de todas essas informações sobre a reserva ecológica do Guapiraçu, ele trouxe a visão desse modelo integrado, né, da solução baseada na natureza, como parte de uma cadeia produtiva de água que vai chegar até o usuário de Niterói, de São Paulo, de todos os consumidores, né, cursos como